welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jess.
And I'm Jo. It's great to be back for episode 4 of It's Personal. We're delighted that joining us today is Myrtle Lloyd, HMRC's Director General for Customer Services. In fact, we're even at her office. So we're coming out of our normal studio into the studio that is HMRC overlooking Parliament Square.
Yeah, that should be such an interesting conversation. And we're going to speak to Myrtle very shortly. But first of all, Jo, I feel like it's been ages. How was your break?
To be honest, I've had a pretty full-on few months, knee-deep in some really exciting transformation work. Lots of energy around improving citizen services, so it's definitely keeping me on my toes. At the home front, it's been just as busy. My son's finished his A-levels and off on his next exciting adventure. So lots of pre-exam tension and gentle reminders that TikTok might not have all the answers. And to top it all off, we're moving house as well at the same time. So we're making a gargantuan move from England back up to Scotland after 30 years. In fact, I'm moving right now.
It's literally now. It's today. The movers are at your house, aren't they?
The Scottish guys are there and I'm at work.
All the life events coming along at once.
Indeed, lots of change.
That's actually the perfect segue into today's interview. A very warm welcome to It's Personal, Myrtle. I wonder if you might tell us a bit more about yourself and how you came to be HMRC's Director General for Customer Services. Give us a potted history.
Well, I'm Myrtle Lloyd and I'm the Chief Customer Officer and Director General for Customer Services Group in HMRC. I joined HMRC in 2021, just coming out of the pandemic when people were just turning from loving HMRC because they were giving out loads of money during the pandemic to when we were trying to get back on track. So it was really interesting times and it's gone by really quickly. Really enjoyed my 4 years laying the foundations for our operations and our customer services transformation and really looking forward to a step change in our transformation, having got our spending review settlement. Before HMRC, I worked in the passport office. So the service that you now see as the lovely passport service was the transformation that myself and my team went through in the 5 years I was at the Home Office. And prior to that, I was in the Department for Work and Pensions, having just joined on a 6-month secondment and then ended up staying like 12 years in the department.
And a 6-month secondment from where?
From a private sector organisation. So I was working for a little company in Manchester that was providing seed funding for .com businesses, and I set up the consultancy arm with a couple of friends, and it was just the wrong time for us because the .com bubble burst around, sort of the early 2000s, and the only people that were then spending money on technology-enabled change was public sector. Mm-hmm. So I applied for a secondment and then just never left.
Well, the private sector's loss is the public sector's gain.
Oh, you're very kind.
So it's really great to meet you, Myrtle, and I didn't know that about your background, so I'm really glad that you described it in that way. We're going to go straight in with a belter of a question, if that's okay with you. For an organisation that has to serve every single adult in the UK, what are some of the biggest challenges and complexities when it comes to designing services that actually work for everyone?
I think you've nailed the challenge. To give you a sense of the scale, we serve about 35 million customers in HMRC, 5 million businesses. And unlike private sector organisation, we have to serve all our customer base. We don't get to choose. And also the consumer or the citizen doesn't have a choice. They have to interact with us. They can't go somewhere else. So we've got to design services for all kinds of ability, for all kinds of demographics. And I think that we do a lot of work with third sectors to, sort of extend our reach and understand a customer base there and how we can partner with them to provide more tailored services. We also work with the representative bodies and understand in working through how we can deliver more citizen-centred services.
Could you say what you mean by those bodies?
So we've got things like ICAEW.
Are they something to do with accountants?
Yeah, Chartered Institute of Taxation. Yeah. Yes, yeah. So what we try to do is work with the tax ecosystem as well to tailor our services. But I think where we're heading around, being a digital first organization, we're trying to build digital services that are so easy and intuitive that the majority of people would be able to interact with the service and make it as seamless as possible. And then for customers with more different needs, complex needs, we provide extra support and more targeted and tailored human support, whether it's through the telephones or through correspondence. So it's pretty much for the majority who can self-serve, let's deliver great digital services and then provide more targeted, tailored one-to-one service for the more complex needs.
How does that insight get shared across government? Like, what do you learn from other government departments about similar challenges that customers have?
So there are a couple of things. So as large delivery operations like HMRC, we're all part of the operational delivery profession. So all of the big delivery departments like the MOD, MOJ, DWP, Home Office, we have communities of practice and we come together to either share best practice or share insight. And then we also do learning with private sector organisations, learning together, learning from other government departments, learning from other public sector organisations, and learning from private sector organisations as well. So there's quite a bit of sharing at the sort of the professional level. I think also when we think about from a customer perspective, where the customer experience or the customer journey span more than one or two departments, we work quite closely. So as an example, in the pensioners space, with the freezing of the tax thresholds, there are more pensioners in the tax system than before. But the pensioners' main interaction is with DWP. Mm-hmm. So we join up with DWP to understand how we can share data better across organizational boundaries and make those customer experiences or the customer journeys that span our boundaries a lot frictionless and a lot more seamless. Similarly with the Home Office on some of our child benefit claims, because we need to understand sometimes whether people have left the country or not, nationality status. We work closely with the Home Office in our child benefit space. So where we can, by focusing on customer journeys, we try and create the join up across different government departments to make that journey much more seamless.
So, Myrtle, you've got a long history of transforming services. And you were talking a minute ago about how you work with different customers who have a huge range of needs and how self-serve can't work for everybody. Can you give us an example of a service that has been recently overhauled to better meet people's needs? What was it like before and what's the after?
I suppose one of our greatest success story has been the HMRC app. So we're now close to about 6 million people on the app, and we are adding more and more features on it. It's really easy, simple to use, a couple of clicks and you're in. So you can do things like get your national insurance number, you can do your child benefit claims in there, you can go in and check your PAYE records, you can get your employment history. So for me, that is the biggest service transformation for us in recent years, and we'll be adding more and more features into it. And the take-up on the app is absolutely phenomenal. The feedback we get is excellent, so it's consistently in the top 5 of all the financial services ad, and satisfaction is constantly in the high 80s. So that, for me, is really one of our sort of beacon programs, and we will continue to build on it.
When did that launch?
I think the app itself has been in existence for I think about 5 or 6 years. But what we have done in the last couple of years is really increase the awareness of the app and then really work on putting in new features. So I think we had it there. We didn't do much marketing of it. We didn't put a lot in it. And, to be perfectly fair, for the first couple of years, it wasn't very exciting because you couldn't do much in it. So I think in the last 2 years, we've really focused on what is it? What are the high volume interactions? How can we surface that through the app? And then how can we start looking at the app as the window into HMRC services, and then how do we start creating more end-to-end services and start keeping the containment rate in the app as well. So I think we're thinking about nearly 6 million customers, and if I'm thinking we've got about 35 million customers, we have a way to go on that.
Oh, so only 29 more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's achievable.
Do you have any sort of evidence now that demonstrates that having that single portal, which is great, by the way, because I use it, actually has reduced contact into the department?
Yes. So I think that if you look at our analog contact, that is, because our digital contact has increased significantly. So we're about 76% of our interactions are now digital. So the introduction of the app, amidst other services, because we've also been enhancing our personal tax account and business tax account, has reduced analog contact quite significantly. But we still have a great challenge for us. So we're looking for, with the spending review settlement that we've got, we're looking for a 90% interactions, sort of digital interactions. It's both an opportunity and a challenge. But we know that our customers, when we did a survey, I think a couple of summers ago, about 86% of our customers want to interact with us digitally. So the appetite is there.
You've actually laid the groundwork perfectly for my next question, which is, there are still some people out there, maybe 15% who aren't super confident with technology, who lack that digital confidence to engage with you guys online. So what is the best way to help them feel more comfortable using the app or the website?
We've got a number of things in play here. So I think the first principle is to deliver really seamless, intuitive digital services, really good quality digital services that doesn't require somebody to have a PhD and sort of, in how to fill a form. So that's principle one, but we always recognize we've got varying degrees of confidence with digital services. So this summer, we'd been also going out to a lot of private sector organizations. And one of the things that we picked up, I think when we went to see NatWest, they provide some coaching for digitally unconfident customers on the phone. And we thought, well, let's see how that might translate in our service. So we created a couple of sandboxes over the summer to see, well, if we were to provide that service, so spend a little extra time on customers understanding why, if there was a digital service available, why they didn't go online, and just getting some of that direct feedback. And on one of the services through the sandbox, what we found was about the conversion rate went from about 70% to about 90% once we'd spend the effort to talk them through and understand what their barriers are to going digital. That's something that we are looking at. Can we add this coaching facility for people who are unconfident and help them get online? We also, as I said, work with third-party organizations. So we do a lot of work with the low-income tax reform group to understand where we can use other outreach services to help increase digital confidence. And I think that we also do a lot of work in the labs, user labs, to understand what it would take to get people more comfortable with their digital services. So a whole wide spectrum of things to get the digital confidence up in our customer group.
That's great. Very, very quickly. I have a 4-year-old daughter, so I think the phrase sandbox probably means something different to me. What is it? I've never heard that term before.
We take a bit of a service.
Yeah.
So you take it out of the mainstream and you take a section of customers and you really analyze. So there's quite a one-to-one interaction. You're not wrapping it in a whole load of processes and a whole load of technologies, just trying to understand. You take a bit of a problem, you take it to one side and you really study it in many dimensions, get really up close and personal to say, well, what problem are we trying to solve here? And then having done it, then you take it out of a sandbox environment into potentially a pilot to see whether it works with a bigger group. And then if it does, then you scale it up. It's a way for us to de-risk our experimentation, but also create a whole lot of engagement and excitement about doing stuff differently. So it's not all about change. It's not all about the big programs, that you can do some of these small scale things, take it to one side, really forensically examine it. And the beauty here is we're not doing this with some people in the corner. We're doing it with our frontline colleagues who who deal with customers in and out. So it's a huge engagement for them as well to say, well, they're bringing their knowledge, their first-hand knowledge into these sandboxes, and then we're providing the support and the wrapper around it, and then understanding how we work and as we scale up.
It's a great way to empower frontline colleagues. So we're going to change the dial and we're going to talk a little bit about success and influence. And as the Director General for Customer Services, in fact, I loved your job title, Chief Customer Officer. I'm really impressed that that's made it into government. How do you personally define success, and what does success look like for HMRC as a whole?
I think that for me, the ultimate is that tax just happens. We've done a lot in recent years around customer orientation and understanding the needs of the customer. I think, though, we still understand customers in their sort of tax obligations. Yeah. And for me, the success is about understanding the customer and getting the organisation to the point where we understand that people live their lives and their tax obligations happen as a consequence of them living their lives. So they don't live their lives to pay tax or to interact with the tax authority. So really getting into that mindset and meeting the customer where they are, recognizing their circumstances and delivering the services based on what is it, what's their entire journey, recognizing that some of them will cross our organizational boundaries as well, but providing that seamless interface, and where the voice of the customer is sort of in our DNA, and everything that we do is based around what can we do to make the customer experience better. That for me is the success.
That strikes a chord, because we talk a lot about the whole human being, and that human being doesn't differentiate what they're on the receiving end of or what they're trying to get from a service point of view. It's just their life. So they could be in Tesco 1 minute and then they're trying to sort the tax out the next, and they just expect and want, based on the research we've done, for that to be at their fingertips. So it's great to hear that you're looking at that.
Yeah, and I think that's the customer expectations have moved on, haven't they? When people can press a button now and get something delivered within hours or a small number of days. It's how do we then sort of match that expectation in the services that we deliver in the public sector as well. Getting into that ethos and really delivering for the customer is something that will be my legacy.
I've got 2 questions about consumer services, which seems topical. I'll roll them into one, if I may. So part 1 is, are consumer services a useful or worthwhile comparison for government services? And secondly, are there things that the consumer world could actually learn from the government's approach to customer service?
Yeah, I think that, yes, there is a lot of things that we can learn from, sort of consumer services. And that's what we'd been doing in the last couple of months, going and looking at organisations like, John Lewis, NatWest, Barclays, Octopus Energy, and saying, well, what is it that we can learn from those organisations? And the things around, speed from insight to action, things like the support line to build digital confidence that I talked about. Those are all the things that we're able to absorb and bring into the public sector. I think where we differ in the consumer organisations, they can vote with their feet. If they don't like one brand, they could go somewhere else. But in the public sector, citizens don't have that luxury, so they have to come to us. And therefore, I think there is a moral obligation on our part to provide services that are respectful of people's circumstances, that give them dignity, and that basically improve their lives. So for me, the difference is that there isn't, for public services, there isn't anywhere else for the customers to go. So, and having said that, I think that's what the consumer services can learn from public sector organisations, is that focus on making citizens' lives better. That HMRC's purpose to collect the funds that will fund public services, that ethos, that public sector ethos, the connection to our higher purpose, I think is something that consumer organisations can learn from public sector organisations.
Okay, so let's look forward a little bit to the future of HMRC. You've talked a little bit about the movement towards self-serve, creating a really strong portal, allowing people to take advantage of that with the reduction of analogue, and what impact that's had on your service levels, which is really amazing. It's a great transformation to hear about. I wondered what the sort of colleague aspect of that is. So maybe a couple of questions. One is, how have your metrics changed and evolved given the evolution towards self-serve? How are they now being measured from a movement away from the traditional operational metrics to maybe something that's a little bit more human-centric?
So I think that for a large operational department like ours, you're never going to get away from the operational metrics of how quickly you do things, how many things, the productivity things. But I think where we're moving to with our colleagues is a focus on what is the outcome. So a whole focus on trust, on fairness, on ease of use. Now, these are metrics that we have right now, but they don't have the prominence. So it's almost turning the operational metrics on a thing that we worry about in the planning of our services, but really bringing to fore all of the metrics around, reducing of, the quality of the conversation, the outcome we're trying to drive, and whether, if you think about the HMRC Charter, really bringing that to life around, are we making things easy? Are we helping people get things right? Are we being responsive? Are we treating people fairly and being aware of people's personal circumstances? So it's not about introducing new metrics, but it's focusing on and really spotlighting the ones that we've already got in play.
I love all of that. And in my simple brain, I talk about, what's below the line, the stuff that you need to measure and manage operationally, but what's above the line that actually makes colleagues feel really connected to their purpose. And it sounds exactly what you've done.
Okay, I want to turn the conversation briefly before we finish up to artificial intelligence, which is obviously a huge talking point right now. Where do you think AI will have the most impact at HMRC, both for your staff internally, but also for the public?
No conversation
Sorry.
can sort of exclude AI, can it? So I think AI has huge potential, and we are already trialing out a couple of things in AI, very much in the colleague productivity space. So looking at summarizing calls using artificial intelligence, so it takes away the time colleagues have to manually putting in notes.
Are you already using that?
We're trialing that. That's about to go live, I think, in October. We're also looking at AI in making sure that we route correspondence to the right areas. We already do that for, summarizing emails and meeting notes. And we're also looking at AI in our complaints space and how can we sort of do a good first draft. So our first wave of AI-enabled programs will be very much in sort of back office productivity type functions. But we're very clear that AI will not replace the human judgment. So, wherever there is a decision or a judgment to be made that alters people's tax obligations, there's always going to be a human in there. So once we've gone through, the first tranche of learning from using AI in sort of our back office function, then we'll look at how we might be sort of exposing that to more citizen-facing services. And we're already doing some pilots in experimenting with the government digital services. I also know that there's quite a lot of thought about the ethics of AI. So we have an AI ethics board where we really look at considerations, look at the risks, and then understand what the mitigations might be. So all of the guardrails, what we've been doing in the last year is putting in the guardrails for AI. And I think in the next year or so, we'll be launching a lot more of our AI projects and learning from those to plow back into where we would apply next. But I think it's not a either or, it's an AI with the human being doing the things that only human beings can do, which is exercising their judgment.
Myrtle, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. Sadly, that is all we've got time for today. But listeners, make sure that you add us to your podcast feed and do get in touch with any thoughts, experiences, or questions that you'd like to share.
You can do that by dropping us a message at csw.editor@civilserviceworld.com or by finding me or Jess on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear more from you.
Thank you so much for listening to It's Personal, and see you next time for episode 5.